All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Couch Warrior Podcast, Fantasy Edition. I'm your host, Mike, and we're going a bit early today because there's another thing going on tonight at 9 o'clock on the MMA Engine. My boy Lou is going with Uncle Weezy. They're going live to break down the Brundage fight from a balls deep perspective, and they're having Cody Brundage on the actual show, so that's super dope. Make sure to check that out, and that's why we're going a bit early today. No live viewers yet, but hopefully you guys will catch up real soon. So if you're new to the show, welcome. If you're not, welcome anyways. What we do here is we break down the upcoming UFC cards from a fantasy app perspective. The apps that we target here are PrizePicks, Underdog Fantasy, which is essentially the same with a few differences, and then Monkey Knife Fight, which is a whole creature of its own. So we're going to go through those. We'll go through my charts that I make every week, and we'll work through the picks together. I'm still figuring out how I want to do this show. Do I want to keep breaking it down person by person, piece by piece? Do I want to just feed you guys my picks and make it a shorter show? I'm not sure. If you guys have an opinion, let me know. That would help a lot, honestly. But right now, I'm not sure. For now, I'll continue breaking it down piece by piece and maybe try to speed it up a little bit. So the first app we do is PrizePicks. PrizePicks is cool because they let us do something that most books do not. I think DraftKings started kind of letting it in some states, but not mine. So PrizePicks lets you bet on props, right? So let's say you like basketball. You can go and you can bet Trae Young to get over 20-something shots, right? Points, I'm sorry. But you can't do that for, let's say, you can't say Nchukwu is going to come out here and get over 50 strikes, right? There's just no way to bet that on any books right now. PrizePicks makes that kind of line available. The one catch is you got to pair it up with another pick, so it's kind of like a parlay situation. So, you got to pick and choose your spots and consider that sometimes you might just be better off making the move on a book if you can. Like, for example, for the fight times, I'll talk about why I don't like those in a bit. But anyways, PrizePicks, it has 4 categories, right, that you can bet on. The fight times, which is essentially just under overs, just like on a book. So I don't think this is fun since it already exists. And I haven't found much of an edge here either. Then there's significant strikes, which I have a few angles, and my personal favorite person to bet the under with is here. But the spot's a little better on Underdog Fantasy, which we'll talk about in a bit. That's why it's dope that we have more than one app, because we can compare. There's value to be found on each app in its own way, and that's why we like to have more than one, and we like to check them all out, compare it to the charts. I just want to remind everybody that I do put these charts up in my descriptions of the video. I'm not sure if anyone's using them, but they're there. Helps me at least to go through it while I'm making my picks, especially for Monkey Knife Fight and PrizePicks. So hopefully it's useful for you guys as well. And now you'll see another category, fantasy score, with PrizePicks scoring. And if you're not sure what a fantasy score is, if you've ever played DraftKings, that's a fantasy score just under DraftKings rules, how much a player scores there. In PrizePicks, they've got their own scoring system with a few differences that I'll talk about once we get there. And then last, there's the takedowns, which pretty straightforward, under over on takedowns. And I find that sometimes there's some really good spots, sometimes there's nothing at all. But there's one here that I really like, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then at the end, I'll go through my picks, and we'll move right on to Underdog Fantasy, and then we'll go to Monkey Knife Fight, and we'll call it a day. Real quick, Underdog Fantasy is just the same thing as this. They just include underdogs sometimes, and they also do something called Rivals, which essentially they'll put up like 2 fighters, right? For example, I'm looking at Rafael Dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev, and it's who's going to get more significant strikes, and they give a plus 26.5 strike edge to Rafael Dos Anjos. So that's what kind of goes on with Rivals, and we'll talk about those and what I like in a bit. I'll do it live on the show because I didn't get to do that just yet before the show. So that's that. And then Monkey Knife Fight it's very similar to these 2 apps, but you don't get to make your own pairings. They already exist, and then you decide how you want to play those pairings. You want to play them over or under. We'll talk about that in a bit as well. I do suggest if you don't have the apps just yet, maybe opening it up and checking it out as you watch the show. It can be really helpful if you haven't used them already. So moving right on, we can start with PrizePicks. And I'll just go from the top, and I'll go pretty quickly here because, like I mentioned, I don't like fight time very much. If I'm going to bet an under, I'm going to do it on the books, right? So the first fight up here is Nchukwi versus Roberson. PrizePicks has it set at 10 minutes. The books have it set at 7.5, so 1.5 rounds. And if you look at Nchukwi, he's gone over this 4 out of 7 times in the UFC, so 57%. And Roberson, 3 of 10, so 30%. And, I have no interest here. If I had to pick something, I'd pick over on the books, but I'm not interested at all. And I don't suggest anyone play it. I don't see any edge there. Gore and Brundage, 12.5 minutes, 2.5 rounds. You look at Gore in his 4 pro fights, 2 of 4 have gone over, so 50%. And for Brundage, in his 4 UFC fights, 1 of 4 have gone over this mark, so just 25%. So for this one, I bet the fight doesn't go the distance on this one. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to double check right now if it was under or if fight doesn't go. But I felt like that was a good spot. So I don't hate it if you don't want to play it on a book and you're looking for another piece on PrizePicks. I don't hate it. Both of these guys, in my eyes, are live for a finish. I think that if this remains on the feet, Gore can clip Brundage. And I think that if it doesn't, I think Brundage can finish Gore on the ground. So I do like the under there. I do like it quite a bit. I prefer to play it on the books here, but if you need a piece, it's not the worst one. I'm just personally not going to be playing it. Then we got Malarkey Johnson, and this is pretty much the same story as what I just said. You look at Malarkey, he's gone over this mark 2 of 5 times. And Johnson, he's gone over this 6 of 10 times. So Johnson doing it more often than not. Malarkey, other way around. I'd be more interested in the under 2.5 here, which is what I played as well, money line. Well, not money line. What I played as well, that's a prop I played on the books. And like I said, if you really need a piece here, maybe it's a decent spot, 2 rounds. I don't know. I'd rather do it on the book, so I wouldn't suggest it for PrizePicks. Moving right along, Vandera Sherman, they got it set at 10 minutes, 2 rounds. And then the books have it at 12.5 minutes, 2.5 rounds. So both of these guys tend to go under more often than not. Vandera 2 of 6 times, Sherman 2 of 5 in his latest UFC stint, because he did have, I think 3 at this point, but I'm counting his new entry against Romanov as the same stint as before. So for this one, again, I was interested on the 12.5 on the books, like the under. I didn't end up getting there, so I'm not going to be getting here for 10 minutes. I don't know. It's just weird because both of these guys, we've seen them go 3 rounds with high output, but we've also seen both of them stumble and fail fairly quickly. So I'm not running to bet this. I'm not running to put my money behind this kind of thing. So we'll move right along. Then we got Nurmagomedov versus Andrade. They've set them at 10 minutes as well. A lot of 10-minute lines this week. I don't think I've seen this before. So 10 minutes for them, 2 rounds. And then you look at the books, they got it set at 12.5 minutes, so 2.5 rounds. And, I do like this fight to finish. I was very tempted to play the under. I ended up not getting there just because I parlayed Nurmagomedov a bunch. But I do tend to think that this will go under. But again, 10 minutes, I don't want to play it here. If you're going to do it, check it out on the book. I'm pretty sure the odds are still pretty good on that. So I don't suggest that. And then lastly, for this section, we've got Barallo versus Petrosian. They've got it set at 10 minutes. The books have it set at 7.5. And you look at Barallo, he's gone over the 10 minutes 2 of 3 times. And then you look at Petrosian, and he's gone over it 1 of 2 times. So this one's tough, man, because personally, I see Barallo taking Petrosian down, subbing him, and calling it a day. So I really could see it going under. I don't hate this as a piece for PrizePicks, honestly, because you're getting finishing abilities on both sides. You're getting somebody who's a really good striker in Petrosian, and Barallo, who will sometimes lift his chin, and then a really good grappler in Barallo against someone who doesn't have any takedown defense really in Petrosian. So I really do like the under there. I don't know if I would get here for PrizePicks, but again, if you need a piece, I don't hate it. Now, moving right along. Now we're up to significant strikes, and this one is a little more down my alley because I think I have a decent angle here. I got 2 of them, right? So first of all, let's keep in mind these are significant strikes, right? And on the ground, they are rarely scoring it as significant. Only if they're really like winding up, then they're scoring it as significant. Otherwise, they are not. So if someone is a blanket wrestler, for example, Ronnie Lawrence, then I'm going to tend to look at their under. There's a reason I'm going his over, and I'll talk about it in a bit, but that's a situation I might look at an under. For example, Barrio might be a time to look under if I think he's going to be grappling the whole time, and it's actually something I might do. So let me bold that for myself. I don't know why I didn't notice that earlier. I went over all of this, thought I got all the spots. And like I always say, sometimes I just find them on the show with you guys, and that's why I love this show so much. And I hope that you guys are using these charts as well to find your own spots in case you don't love all of mine. So moving on. Yeah, and my other angle, and this is why I love Nurmagomedov, it's the spinning stuff, right? If someone's a big spinner, again, a reason why normally I'd go under for Lawrence too. Lawrence would normally tick both boxes, and I'd be on his under. And I'll talk about why I'm not. But for Nurmagomedov, he spins too much. His output is good when he's letting go for counters and stuff, but he's barely covering this number. You'll notice I wrote that it's better on UDF. That's just my abbreviation for Underdog Fantasy. And it's better there because if you look at it here, it's 54.5. And he's covered this 2 of 5 times. But on Underdog Fantasy, it's 55.5, which he's only covered once. So I do like it a lot. He spins a lot. He's very counter oriented, and he can grapple too, which also will mean he's not getting as many. And what's good about him is he's getting finishes a lot. What's good about that is if he gets a finish quick, he's not going to need 54.5 strikes. He's not going to use that, and we're going to cash. So I do like this spot. I think there's a reason that it normally goes under, and I think it's a really comfortable spot. So I skipped over to get there just because I was going over my angle, but we'll start from the top now. So you see they've set Lawrence at 45.5, and he's gone over this 2 of 3 times in his UFC career. The only time he didn't was in the Dana White Contender Series fight he had, and just that's because he was blanket controlling there, blanket wrestling and blanket control, and they don't count it as much for the significant strikes. So that's why that number is as low as it is. But the reason I think that he's going to go over here is because I don't think that Kakhramonov is going to give him this grappling as much as people think. I think that a lot of people are kind of running too quickly to call Ronnie Lawrence this really amazing fighter. He's showing a lot of good things, I agree, but I just think it's a little too soon. And he's fighting someone who's very underrated and who continues to be underrated in Kakhramonov. So I think that Kakhramonov is going to make it difficult for Lawrence to take him down. He made it difficult for Umar Nurmagomedov to take him down. So I really do think that he's going to be able to keep the fight on the feet more often than not. And if they're striking, if you watch Lawrence, he's very blitz-oriented. He loves his little blitzes forward. He puts together a pretty decent output on the feet. So as long as Saidyoko Kakhramonov forces the fight to remain on the feet, I think that we're going to cover that 45.5 for Ronnie Lawrence, unless he gets knocked out or hit with a guillotine, both of which I think are possible. But I think that he'll be able to cover the 45.5. It's one of those lower edge numbers that I like to go after. So I like that over. And then we look at Nchukwi, and it's a similar breakdown here. So you look at the numbers, right? And there's a reason I said it's better on Underdog Fantasy, and we'll talk about it when we get to that app. But it's because the numbers are slightly lower there. But 47.5 is what it's set at. And you look at how often it's hit the over, 4 of 8 times, so half the time. And personally, I think this is going to go over because, look, do I think that Nchukwi's got the power to knock out Roberson? Yes. But do I think he's going to do it very quickly? No, I don't. I think he's going to have to build up on the damage because that's what he's shown so far in his career. He's not really much of a one-punch guy, at least in the UFC. Now, is Roberson going to be able to get him down where he's been able to find some success at middleweight? I really don't think so. Nchukwi is huge. The size advantage is huge. And I just don't think that he'll be able to take Nchukwi down. And because of that, I think they're going to be striking on the feet. And I think it's going to take Nchukwi at least 47.5 strikes to finish him. So I do like it. I think they're going to go the distance. So then I really like it. And I think it's a solid spot here. So we'll move right along to Gore. He's set at 44.5. He's covered this in his one UFC fight. And the only reason I don't like it is because I think the fight could finish at any moment. You know, both of these guys are finishers. Both of them are super tough. And I think both of them could finish at any second of the fight. So I don't really have any interest in playing that one. Then we look over at Shevchenko, and you'll see I also bet the over here. And Again, I noted that it's better on Underdog Fantasy, which has set some of these lines a bit lower, so it gives us a little bit more room to work with. But again, I like this because we're setting ourselves up for a striker versus striker battle here, something that Shevchenko hasn't really gotten recently. Casey O'Neill, grappler. Andrea Lee has good grappling if she needs it. The one time she didn't, Ariane Lipsky, she won her fight. She struggles with grapplers. She's not getting a grappler here. Casey Kenny, I always mix them up. Casey O'Neill is also a high volume striker. She loves that stuff. You look at her striking numbers, it's crazy. Her volume for significant strikes is high. Then go look at her numbers for regular strikes. Her pitter patter numbers are crazy. The output's very high. So I don't expect a finish early, right? I think it's possible at some point one of them knocks the other down, but I don't see a finish. I don't see grappling. And because of that, I think that they're going to be fighting on the feet and they're going to be going to war. Shevchenko's a kickboxer. Casey O'Neill. Oh my God, I'm mixing her up. Casey. Man. It's been a long week. Courtney Casey. All right, I'm very sorry for that mix-up, guys. It's been a long week. But anyways, moving right along. Tercios, they've set him at 80.5 significant strikes. He's covered this in both of his UFC fights. And look, he should probably go over here, right? Because he's not the best finisher. His opponent is fairly durable in Zahabi. He's pretty durable, doesn't get finished often. I don't see Zahabi winning the fight, and I don't see Zahabi grappling really. So if they're on the feet and Tercios can't get him out of there, he's just going to go off on him, right? And he should cover this. I'm curious. I'm interested. I might get there, but it's these high numbers. I tend to get scared off of them because we really don't know. Ricky can come in here and maybe finish this guy. Like realistically, if you look at it, Ricky's been active. Ricky's been training. We don't really know what Zahabi's been up to. He's inactive. He fights like once every year at best. So you don't really know. I do think it goes over, but I'm not going to play it. Calvillo, 60.5. She's covered this 3 of 10 times. And this is another spot that I haven't quite played yet, but I am curious about. So the reason I guess I'm not like super hyped to play it is because if she is getting her takedowns, then she's not going to be getting all these significant strikes against Nunes. But I do think that Nunes is probably going to keep it on the feet. So I'm not really sure how. I guess I'm leaning under here, but I wouldn't play it because I just don't have a good read, as you can tell. Malarkey, 38.5. He's only hit this 1 of 5 times. And, you look at the matchup and you got to think it's a very big possibility that one of these guys finishes the other quickly. I'm just not running to bet this because 38.5, it's not impossible to do that in a round if they're both just going off. Not impossible to do that in a round and a half. And then if they finish, you might still cover it. It's a close call, so I'm not interested, but it can go both ways. Vandera, 51.5. He's covered this 3 to 6 times. And again, I think this should go over. Both him and Chase Sherman has shown to be fairly good with volume for the heavyweight division. But I think it's possible he does what Collier did, gets him down, just off the fence, pulls him down, gets on top, and finishes him quick with either ground and pound or a submission choke. So that's why I'm not interested there. I already explained why I love the Nurmagomedov side. Barallo, I mentioned it right on the show, so I kind of like this under, right? They've set him at 16.5, and he's only covered that 1 of 3 times, 33%, right? So he's not the craziest output striker on the feet. He's got this karate style where he's trying to be very pinpoint accurate, constantly looking for those knees, the flying knees, the very funky movement, very funky moves. His arsenal is very creative. And I just think because of that and because of his grappling edge, this number's very, very live to go under. He's going to be taking him down, I think. And I think the sub's very live, very quick. So I do like that line for the under. And, while we're talking about this, I'm curious what the Barallo sub in round 1 prop is. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. This is not a prop show, but I am still curious. So Barallo in round 1 by sub, not that good. Plus 750 on FanDuel. Not a terrible look, but not really something I'm running to do. And then we look at Fiziev over here. 110.5 is what they set him at. He hasn't had a 5-rounder yet, so he hasn't covered this number. We don't exactly know. I don't know, man. I lean under because I think RDA is going to make this very grapple heavy, but it's hard to tell right now. So I'm not going to be playing that one. I have no interest in it. All right, so we are now up to fantasy score. I would say there's more of an edge here than any of the other categories. If you caught our episode last week with our guest Key 3 Picks, he was talking about how he thinks there's usually more of an edge on the fantasy score, and I tend to agree. Just in certain situations, I would say there's exceptions. But anyways, a quick breakdown of, first of all, I'll talk about why it's different here than DraftKings. And it's really important because, first of all, DraftKings, they score top control. Whereas PrizePicks does not score top control. They'll score the takedown, but not the top control. So someone like Ronnie Lawrence, for example, they're going to score super high on PrizePicks and on DraftKings, because on DraftKings, they're going to be scoring the takedowns and the top control. And in PrizePicks, they're going to be scoring all the takedowns. However, if you have somebody, say, more like Islam, right, where he's going to take someone down and just hold them, where in DraftKings, that's going to be gold. In PrizePicks, it's not going to get you anything, really. If Islam only gets the 2 takedowns and then gets a sub, you're going to score off the round finish, but you're not going to be scoring off those takedowns. If he doesn't get a finish at all, you're going to be scoring really low. So that's the first thing to consider. And the second is that PrizePicks scores takedown defense, whereas DraftKings does not. And that's important because it adds up, right? So 3 points per takedown, and it could be important even in fights like this. Like, it's raised a lot of the scores on the board right now. For example, Fiziev, right? In his Alex White fight, I think he defended over like 10 takedowns. That's 30 points. And that's the difference between making over a fantasy score or going under. And, we can consider this because if someone we want to bet the under for is fighting a volume wrestler and they have good takedown defense, we might be concerned about going under, because even if our read is correct, the takedown defense points could still mess us up. So those are just the 2 differences to consider. And then in terms of how it's scored on PrizePicks, it's pretty straightforward. So a significant strike is 0.6 points. A takedown is 6 points. A sub attempt is 5. A takedown defense is 3. A knockdown is 12. A first round finish is 100 points. A second round finish is 75 points. A third round finish is 50 points. And then if there's a 4th and 5th round, it's 30 points for the 4th, I believe, 25 for the 5th, and 20 points for a decision win. And then, I don't know if I said it, takedown defense is 3 points. And then pretty sure I said knockdowns 12 points as well. So that's the point scoring system. And then let's get right into it. So something I'm constantly looking at, look, PrizePicks, they put the favorites usually, only the favorites. And if I'm on an underdog, automatically you got to think that might be a spot to look at, right? Because if you think the dog's going to win, by definition, you probably think that the favorite's not going to cover their fantasy score, unless it's like something low and they can still cover it in a loss. It has happened with certain fighters, but just something else to consider. But anyways, here we've got Ronnie Lawrence. They've set him at 82.5. He's covered this all 3 times easily, because he's shooting so much and he's getting it, even though he is getting top control too. This volume of wrestling scores him very, very high. So, excuse me. The reason that I'm not jumping all over this is because of the matchup. And as I mentioned earlier, I just think that Kakhramonov, I think he should win this fight. And I think he's live to upset him. And even if Lawrence ends up pulling it off, I really don't see him getting off the same kind of volume of takedowns against Kakhramonov that he has in the past. So I'm very hesitant. Now, you can also argue that this is still a good move, even if you think Lawrence loses, right? Because check this out. Let's say Mana Martinez won that last fight by some miracle, right? So let's say there was a robbery. So it was a decision win. So Lawrence only got 20 points for that. So let's take away the 20 points. And we're looking at what then? We're looking at just under, we're looking at about 99.6 points, right? So even in a loss there, Lawrence would have covered. You look at his contender series bout. Let's say he got robbed there. Minus 20 points. We're at what is that, 93.8? Still covers. So, there is an argument that Lawrence can cover this even in a loss, because he would have covered it if he lost in either his first in his contender series fight or his most recent UFC fight. So there's that argument, but I do think that Kakhramonov wins, so I'm not going to be playing that. Then we got Nchukwu at 78.5. He's covered this 4 of 8 times. And, this isn't a terrible spot, I would say. I was looking at it myself. I don't really know. I think it could be a slow, boring paced fight with low output for going for 3 rounds. It could be a finish on the Nchukwu side. I'm not sure, so I won't be playing it. Gore, 78.5. He's never covered this. I think he's live to do it if he knocks out Brundage, but he might not. So I'm not interested in that one. I'm more interested in being exposed to the under there, which I am, or the fight doesn't go. I think that's the way to do it. Shevchenko, 76.5. She's covered this 3 of 8 times. And, she's even got W's there where she didn't end up covering. So, going the under there wouldn't be a terrible spot. I don't know if oh my gosh, again, I'm blanking on her name. If Courtney Casey is the woman to really come here and bring it to Shevchenko. I mean, she kind of is, but then if they're both striking a lot, like I mentioned earlier, I think will happen, then they're going to go over this. So, yeah, I'm not going to play that. I wouldn't suggest playing it. Tercios, over 88.5. I like it. He's done it 1 of 2 times. And I just think that he's live to either get a late finish here by breaking his opponent with his pressure, or I think that he can get it just by volume and just doing what he does. You look at his last fight against Brady. That's what happened. He didn't get a finish, but he still scored really high because of all the other activity that he was doing. So I do think that Tercios could cover this. And, you look at his opponent. Oh, my gosh. I keep blanking on names today. I apologize, guys. Zahabi. He has shot. He does shoot sometimes. He just doesn't do a great job getting the takedowns. So what I mentioned earlier, takedown points, right? So I kind of like that Tercios over. Then you got Calvillo under, and I love this spot, 73.5. She's covered it 4 of 10 times, and she literally doesn't cover this sometimes in a win. So that's why I like this spot a lot. I think that Nunes should win. I think that Nunes could have been favored and would have been if she wasn't coming off of giving birth and there weren't all these unknowns, which are fair unknowns, and that's why I'm not going to be overexposed to this spot, but I do really like the Calvillo under. It's already 9 o'clock, so I'm going to try to hurry things up, but it is what it is. We still got a bunch to do, so I don't want to rush too much. I'll have to catch Wheezy and Lou later on. Definitely make sure to do that as well. But anyways, Malarkey, they set him at 90.5. He's covered this 2 of 5 times, and I think he's live to cover it. I think he's live to finish Michael Johnson, but I'm not interested in playing that. I played their under 2.5, and I think that's enough exposure to that for me. Vandera over 87.5, and I kind of like this, right? I like it because he can cover it 2 ways. If he finishes Chase Sherman, he's going to cover it. And then if he doesn't finish Chase Sherman and they go 3 rounds, I think it's going to be a high-volume affair once again, and I think he's going to be able to cover this score. So I do like 87.5 for Vandera. It's not my favorite line, but I do like it. Nurmagomedov, 93.5, 3 of 5 times for him, 60%. Not interested in this one, man. He could get a finish. He could not. I have a small bet on him inside the distance, so I guess I would lean over, but I'm not interested in playing that because De Andrade is a very tough opponent and an absolute dog. Barrio, 85.5. He's covered this 1 of 3 times, and I do think he's going to cover here. I think he's going to get a quick submission, but I don't have any interest in playing it. And then Fiziev, 1 of 2.5. He's covered it 1 of 6 times, and I am very interested about the under because I'm going to be playing RDA more than likely. So that is something I'm going to look at. It's just a bit of a concern because I do think Fiziev is going to be live for a KO the entire fight. But I don't know, man. I think RDA is a really, really live dog here. So moving right along to our very last category, we've got takedowns. And this week I don't have that much going on for takedowns. I've got 3 spots, but really there's 2. There's just one that I like the most. So Lawrence 3.5. He's covered this all 3 times easily. And I tend to think he'll probably do it again, but again, I don't want to bet on that because Kakramanov is really good. I think he's being underrated here. I think he could have been the favorite, and I'm all over him here, so I'm not going to be playing that, but I totally get it if people do. The numbers seem to support it. Roberson under 1.5. I love this. In his last 10 fights, he's done this 1 of 10 times. Only 1 of 10. And that was at middleweight. So how is he going to do this to Kennedy Nchukwu over here, light heavyweight, against a guy who's huge, who has 80% takedown defense? Like, 2 takedowns, that's really, really a stretch in my opinion. So I really like this spot. Tercios 1.5. He's covered this 1 of 2 times. And that was in his most recent fight, but this isn't a spot that I'm interested in. Malarkey 1.5. He's covered this 2 of 5 times. And I am interested in the under, but I'm pretty sure we have a better line on Underdog Fantasy, and I'll talk about it when we get there. I believe they have it set at 2, so it just gives us a bit more of a cushion. So I do like the under, though. And then Barallo, 1.5 takedowns is what they set him at, and he's covered this 1 of 3 times. Now, I played I actually haven't played it yet, and now I originally leaned the over, but now that I think about it more and more, I'm kind of leaning the under because, like I mentioned earlier, I think that if Barallo gets it down, that's it. I think that if he gets it down, it's going to be a wrap shortly after. So because of that, I have to think that it might go under, So that's the spot that I'll be looking at to possibly go under. And then RDA, 2.5 takedowns for him. He's covered this 4 of 10 times, and 2 of those times were his last 2 scraps. So, look, I think he's going to come in here looking to grapple because I think he's a smart man. He's been around for a long, long time, and he knows what he's doing. He knows what he needs to do to get the W. And I think he can do it. Fiziev has, I think, like a 93% takedown defense, so it's a challenge. And he's training at Tiger Muay Thai, a camp that, while it is a Muay Thai-based camp, their takedown defense there is fantastic. They train it. It's clear. Look at guys like Peter Yan. So I don't know. And he's got 5 rounds to work, right? So I do tend to think that he's going to hit the over. I'm not positive. I think I'm going to end up playing it, though, but not there just quite yet. All right, so we just finished up PrizePicks, and now we're going to run right over to Underdog Fantasy. We'll try to go through this one relatively quick since we already broke down some of these. I'll try to focus more so on the ones that we have not done or that are very different, and then we'll run through rivals real quick. And then for Monkey Knife Fights, instead of going through the chart piece by piece because it's so complicated, I'm just going to tell you guys my picks and my selections and why, and then we'll call it a night. And we'll all go check out Cody Brundage over on the MMA Engine with Lou Betcha and Uncle Weezy. So moving right along. Underdog Fantasy, same story. They got a section for significant strikes, takedowns. I have it as other. It's just finishes. And then rivals, which we'll go over once we get there. So for the very first one, Lawrence, we already spoke about. I've got nothing new to add there. Same goes for Nchukwu. Same goes for Gore. Shevchenko, I like the over here, and I like it better here than on PrizePicks because we're saving 2 strikes. We're getting 58.5 here, whereas we're getting 60.5 on PrizePicks. So I do like that for Shevchenko. Excuse me. Ricky Tercios, 87.5. Very big difference from his PrizePicks at 80.5. But I don't think it's enough considering his output. I think if he crosses the barrier of 80, I think he's going to cross it quite a bit. So no edge there, in my opinion. Calvillo, 64.5. I don't hate it. It's better than PrizePicks. Going under, I don't hate it. 3 of 10 times she's gone over only. So it's a decent spot. I don't know because Nunes might keep it on the feet where then she might go over. Look at the Jessica I fight, right? So, but then that was also 5 rounds. So I don't know. Leaning under for Calvillo. My guy Kiarix in the chat. Thank you for tuning in, brother. Always appreciate it. But moving right along, we got Malarkey. They set him at 40.5. It was 38.5 on PrizePicks. And yeah, nothing new to add there. Same breakdown as before. Vandora 50.5. Same thing, not much of a difference. Nurmagomedov, like I mentioned earlier, this is the spot. I like it better than the PrizePicks one because you get that extra strike. But the breakdown remains the same. It's because he spins. He likes those funky movements. He's very counter-based. And he's always live for a finish. Barallo, they got him set at 54.5. It was 60.5 on PrizePicks. And I lean the under, so I'd be more interested in it on PrizePicks because it's covered it only 1 of 3 times. But why not take the extra 6 strikes, And then Fiziev, 107.5. I've got no interest in playing this, but the breakdown remains the same as before. Now, let's see. Oops. That was an accident. All right. So next up are takedowns. And some of these we've already seen on PrizePicks, like Lawrence, no point in breaking that down again. And then Shevchenko, she's not on PrizePicks, and I didn't get to fill in these for the people who aren't on PrizePicks, so we're going to do those together real quick. So starting with Shevchenko, I'm going to pull her up real quickly on UFC stats, and we're going to look. So the last fight, 0 takedowns. The one before that, 0. 1 against Lipsky, 0, 0, 0, 2, 0. So in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights, she's covered that 1 takedown 1 time, 1 out of 8 times. I believe that comes out to around 17% rounded. So, she's not a wrestler. Her grappling kind of sucks. She got takedowns over Lipsky because Lipsky's grappling isn't very good. And neither is Jiyeon Kim's, and that's where she got the 2 takedowns. Casey, though, her takedown defense also kind of sucks. Liana Jawa was able to take her down with relative ease. She just didn't do it often enough to win the fight, but she could have if she would have just shot. So I would lean the under here, but I'm not interested. It's a low number, Calvillo, they set her at 1. I was actually pretty surprised that they didn't have her on PrizePicks at all. But, I have to think it'll go over. Calvillo's a grappler, she's a grappler at heart. She hasn't been finding success with it lately, but that's how she wins fights. That's what she's got to do to win fights. So I've got to think that she's going to go over 1 takedown, even with Nunes's really good takedown defense. But am I going to get there? I don't know. Malarkey, I do like the under 2 takedowns. It's 1.5 on PrizePicks, and it's 2 here. He's covered this 2 of 5 times. And I like this because, first of all, Malarkey's not really a grappler. He knows how to use it. He can use it, and I think he might. But I don't think he's going to be volume taking down Johnson enough to get over 2 takedowns, to get 3 takedowns, Like, you look at it, Michael Johnson's got a 78% takedown defense over. Look at the sample size. So I'm not confident that Malarkey could take him down more than twice. So I really do like that under there, the 2. Nurmagomedov, they set him at 1. He's not on PrizePicks. I don't want to play that. We don't really see him shoot. He has, particularly in the Scoggins fight, but not something I'm interested in here. Barallo, 1.5. It's the same as PrizePicks, so the same breakdown remains. And then Fiziev, I thought this was interesting. They've got him here at a half takedown. And I'll pull up Fiziev. I don't know if he's ever gotten one. He has. Against Diakese, he got one. And against Alex White, he got one. So I guess it's something that he's done, but I really, really don't think that he's going to be grappling RDA. So, but I would never play an under on a half because it's just a half. And the smallest thing could cross that boundary. So I'm not going to be playing under or over. Excuse me. And then looking over at the finishes, I don't like playing these. I don't see any point because you can usually get it inside the distance for any of these fighters for plus money. So I don't see any point in playing that. And then rival spots. All right, so I'm going to pull that up real quick on my phone. I was going to do it on the computer to make it easier to see everything, but they're giving me issues saying something with my location and whatnot. So I'm going to have to do it on my phone. Now, the first one is significant strikes with RDA and Fiziev. They're giving RDA a 26.5 edge. of additional strikes. And, because of that, I'm actually kind of interested. I'm a little interested in that RDA side, but will I get there? I'm not sure. But to give him almost 27 additional strikes over Fazeev, I don't know. Tempting. Then their takedowns, they're giving RDA an edge over Fazeev, and they're giving Fazeev an additional 1.5 takedown. I'm not interested in that at all. Barallo against Petrosian, they're giving Petrosian the edge, Barallo plus 6.5 as a bump. And I don't like that either. I think it's probably going to be Petrosian with the better volume here. Barallo is a very karate, funky style kind of fighter. For takedowns, they've got Barallo with the advantage and Petrosian with a 1.5 bump. And that's why I don't like this, because I don't think Barallo is really going to need more than one takedown. So, if anything, I would lean with playing Petrosian there. Significant strikes, Said Nurmagomedov versus Danjraj. Danjraj is getting a bump of 11.5. And, I actually kind of really like that because, as it is, I think Nurmagomedov is a very low output striker. So I don't hate that at all. That's probably a spot that I'm going to be playing. All right. And then for their takedowns, they're giving 0.5 additional takedowns to Danjraj. I'm not interested there either. Chase Sherman, Vandera for takedowns, it's just straight evens, which is interesting because I would definitely lean Vandera. And then if it doesn't go either way, you get your money back. So that's a spot I like. I don't think Sherman's going to be taking down Vandera. Alrighty. And then for Michael Johnson, Jamie Malarkey, significant strikes. They're giving plus 5.5 additional strikes to Johnson. Again, this is a nice spot I kind of like. Even if Malarkey finishes him, Johnson's the one with the output and the volume. You look at his hands so fast, and the combinations come so quick, and it's pretty much never just one shot at a time. So I actually kind of like that spot as well, and I'm going to throw that in here too. Johnson over Malarkey, significant strikes. Alrighty. And then for their takedowns, they're giving a bump to Johnson of +2, which I also really like. That's very interesting. Then we got Nunes versus Calvillo. Again, weird. Sometimes you got to think, like, here, I'm going to throw it up. This is one of those things. So they set Calvillo versus Nunes. They're giving the bump to Nunes of +3.5. So they think Calvillo is going to be getting more strikes here, which is a very weird thing to think. I definitely think that the striking advantage goes to Nunes here, and so does the output. So I really like that because we're also getting a bump on her. So Nunes over Calvillo, significant strikes. And then for their takedowns, they're giving Calvillo the edge. Obviously, Nunes is getting a bump of plus 1.5 takedowns. No interest there. They're asking who's going to get a knockout here, which is an interesting thing that I have no interest in. Zahabi versus Tercio, significant strikes. They're giving Zahabi a bump of 24.5, which shouldn't be enough. Ricky's probably still going to outvalue him by quite a bit, but no interest in playing that. Ricky Zahabi takedowns. Zahabi's getting +1 on the takedowns there. No interest in that play. Courtney Casey, Shevchenko, significant strikes. They're giving the bump to Casey +4.5, which I don't hate, but I don't think I'm going to play that. Takedowns, they're giving +1 to Casey. Weird. No interest, though. Brundage versus Tresean Gore. They're giving for significant strikes. They're giving Brundage an additional 7.5, which I kind of like. But also, if he's grappling, like I mentioned earlier, they don't really count significant strikes when you're wrestling. So, not really one I want to play. My guy Jorge Sandoval over here, thank you for tuning in, brother, saying he's also on Barallo under significant strikes. I think it's a solid spot, man. I really do. But moving right along, Brundage versus Gore for takedowns. They're giving Gore +1. is interesting. I don't think Gore's going to get any takedowns here, so I would probably play Brundage there, but I don't know that I will. Then we got Roberson, Nchukwi, significant strikes. Roberson's getting plus 12.5. I think Nchukwu still outpaces him there, but I've got no interest. Takedowns, they're giving Roberson the edge with Nchukwu getting an additional 0.5 takedowns. And no interest there either. I would way rather just play Roberson under on his takedowns, which I am. Moving right along, though, then we got, let's see. And then we got significant strikes for Kakramanov versus Lawrence. And Kakramanov is getting the bump here, plus 7.5. And again, I like that. I do like that. I think that he's going to outstrike our guy, Ronnie Lawrence. So I'm going to take that as well. Okay. And then the last one is takedowns. You know, they're giving a bump to Kakramanov of plus 3.5. They really think Lawrence is going to out-grapple him to that extent, which I'm tempted to play against, but not right now. So that's it for Underdog Fantasy. We've now gone through 2 of 3 of our apps, and we're going to go into Monkey Knife Fight, and it's going to be much quicker than it has been before because I like what I did with Key 3 picks last time out, where I kind of just we found the spots beforehand, and then we use the chart as a guide. So you guys feel free to find this chart in the description of the YouTube video and use it on your own time at your own pace. But on the video today, I'm just going to go over my picks because it really is just such a long chart. I will say this just to explain everything real quick. So for the strikes, this is very important because I didn't know this when I first started on Monkey Knife Fight. But for their strikes, it's not significant. So for PrizePicks and Underdog Fantasy, I was talking about how on the ground, significant strikes aren't counted, right? But strikes are. So that's a whole nother ballgame once we're playing on Underdog Fantasy. I mean, on Monkey Knife Fight, and something we've got to consider. The other thing is, for all the underdogs, they set their fantasy score automatically lower because they think they're going to lose. So what I do is, for the past numbers column, for those underdogs, I only look at their losses, and I like to see if they covered that number even when they lose. Because if they win, of course, they're going to cover that low number. But I want to see if they can still cover it in a loss, and then see if they're a good piece, you know? So starting with just straight up fights, you know, so there's a few different sections in Monkey Knife Fight. You can either do it fight by fight. You can go to the all-day slate. You go to the prelim slate or the main card slate. So starting with just the straight up fights. For the Roberson and Chukwu fight, I like the fantasy play here. For some reason, they set Roberson with the favorite line here. So Roberson's is 72.5, and I like the under there. And the Chukwu's is 42.5, and I love the over there. So I really like that spot. And then Nurmagomedov versus Andrade. I like the under 66.5 strikes for Nurmagomedov, and I like the over 40.5 strikes for Andrade. Then for the all-day slate, I've only got one play there. It's for a rapid fire, and it's Tercios getting more strikes over Fiziev, with Fiziev getting plus 1.5 of a bump, combined with RDA getting more significant strikes than Casey, and she's getting a bump of plus 6.5. So I like that spot. And then for the prelim slate, I've got one spot only as well. I played Calvillo under 75.5 fantasy score. And I paired that with Roberson under 72.5 fantasy score. And I love it. I love it so much because Roberson shouldn't be 72.5. He's not the favorite. I think he's going to lose. I really don't think he covers this. And let's check him out real quick. Let's go look. How does he do in a loss? In his losses, he's covered the 72.5 0 times. And even if they didn't mess this up and they gave him the Chukwu's number of 42.5, you know how many times he would have covered this in a loss? 0 times. So I love this play, and I love it because Calvillo also, I really do expect her to go under that 75.5, man. You look at that 75.5, she's covered it 3 of 10 times. You're getting an even higher line than on PrizePicks, but with the same scoring. So I really, really like that spot. That's probably my favorite one and the one I'll be most heavily invested in. And there's the main card slate. There I played Nurmagomedov under 66.5 strikes, paired with Barallo over 62.5 strikes. And that's because even though I think Barallo will go under on his significant strikes, if it's on the ground and he's hitting Petrosian to get that rear naked and whatnot, I think he can cover this. So that's a play that I'm looking at but haven't played yet. And then lastly, Knockout Kings. I really like this one. What Knockout Kings is you pick 3 fighters and then you decide how risky you want to make the bet. I only go for over 1.5 knockouts, so I only need one guy to score the KO. And this week I went with Gore, Nchukwu, and Johnson or Malarkey. I haven't picked between the 2 yet. I don't like playing this more than once, so I'm only going to do one lineup, and I'll pick one of them. I just don't know which one yet. So that's it, guys. That's it for the show. Thank you all for tuning in. Reminder that the charts are going to be in the description of this video. And also a reminder to go check out the MMA Engine YouTube channel right now. Wheezy and Lou Betya are over there with Cody Brundage breaking down his fight. So definitely go check that out. I'm going to go there after this. And catch us tomorrow on the MMA Engine, me and Lou, for the Bet Elevator, my personal favorite show I do. It's a ton of fun. We look for the big plus money shots, so definitely tune into that. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Have a great day.